tomorrow. We'll give you plenty of time later to carry on those conversations. Thank you. It's nice to catch up, isn't it? After life just been a bit strange for like 6 or 8 weeks. It's nice to have these times to catch up with everyone. So do make the most of it after we'll have the coffee and everything set up at the end of the service. So do make the most of catching some time after this as well. Look, just a couple of things to highlight towards you. If you're wanting to give today, there's a giving session there in the foyer, just for those wanting to give of tithes and offerings to the Lord, as we do each week. And something else we want to do, we want to just really sow into other families right at the moment. And we're very aware that other families are doing it really tough in this season. And we've made the most of just being a part of the shoebox ministry. And so you've probably heard of this, but this is where a whole bunch of people from around New Zealand take a shoebox, one for each family, fill it with a bunch of goodies for a child, and then we bring them back here. We'll drop them to Manor, and they'll then be distributed to children in need around the world to receive just a beautiful gift from New Zealand of just some really good bits and pieces. And so there's a wee list of things that you might put in there and that you can be a part of, but it's really quite doable for a family and very fun to do with your own children. So hey, let's make a Christmas present for another child from another nation. And so what we'd encourage you to do with that, we've booked about 50 of these boxes, and so why don't each of you as families here consider, we can take a box, and over the next few weeks we can fill that up with some bits and pieces that meet the criteria and bring them back to church. So in the foyer, Debbie will be there after church. As you head out, you can sign up to take one of these boxes. You get to take it as a flat sheet box, you get to make it into a box, that's the first fun challenge. And 2, then you get to fill it, and then you get to bring it back. And so, just great just to lift your eyes once again off ourselves in that sense too, and just to be a part of blessing other people. So that'll be fantastic. Do keep an eye on Facebook and email right on the season. It's changing times, so at the moment we're 9 and 11. If we change on that, we would just love to let you know. And so we'll just have flexi each week, but we'll keep you posted on that. If you are not on our church email list and you're pretty much going, yeah, this is where I am now, and you'd like to be, please do write your email on a piece of paper and drop it into one of the giving boxes down the back on the wall or in the foyer, and just put please add us to the email list, and that will get you put onto that. But Facebook's a good step along the way in the meantime, so that'll be fantastic. Rightio, well, I'm really stoked to have Jono Sutton coming to preach the Word of God now, and so why don't you put your hands together for Jono as he comes up the front. Jono and Megan are much like part of our church family and their little ones, and Jono's one of our leaders and youth, and he and Megan also champion and lead our 18 plus ministry. So if you've got kids in those age groups, don't be afraid to have a chat to Jono, and really great. So, okay mate, go for it.
Morning. How's everybody this morning? Pretty good? Good. I would do a line and length introduction of who I am a little bit, but it's not that necessary. But I am Jono, and I'd far rather spend time looking at this than talking about myself. So this morning we're going to do a few different things. We're going to look at the wonder of creation. I'm going to have a go at attempting something that I consider to be an impossible task by trying to describe how awesome is God. And then we're going to look at a couple of personal experiences. And what I really hope to do this morning is to make you all feel slightly uncomfortable. Because church has a tendency over a period of time to be quite a comfortable place and a comfortable thing. But I look back over the years that I've had input into my life, and when I am in uncomfortable situations is when I sort of grow and develop and learn who God really is. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Can somebody please shout the first verse of the Bible?
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And if I can get this thing to go.
Hang on.
We might have our first slide. That's right. Oh. The heavens and the earth. Okay, so when I think of the heavens, that's what I think of. We, of course, call it our Milky Way galaxy. But in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's sort of what I think of. A beautiful picture of what we see in our night sky. The earth. Does anybody know off the top of their head how big the earth is?
Big.
Big. It is big. In in circumference, so if you were to drive around the Earth, 40,000 kilometres. Okay. So imagine the odometer on your car. If your car's old, it might have done 250,000 kilometres. If your car's quite new, it might have only done 40,000 kilometres. So that's one journey around the Earth. Or to think of it differently, hop in the car with the family, drive to the top of the North Island, drive from the top of the North Island to the bottom of the South Island, and do that journey, make sure you get it right, 13 times, and that's one trip around the Earth, okay? You can kind of understand that, can't you? You can comprehend that, do that journey 13 times. So yes, the Earth is big. Going a little bit deeper, the Sun is much bigger, isn't it? Now we see in different pictures the scale, the Earth's this big and the Sun's this big. So does anybody know how big the Sun is? Young man.
You can fit over like 2 million Earths in the Sun.
2 million Earths in the Sun. Wow, he's a good man. He's been at school, hasn't he? He just took my whole thing now. The Sun is much bigger. So if the Earth was 40,000 kilometres, the Sun, is 4.4 million kilometres in diameter. So get to the car and get with your family and drive to the top of the North Island. And once you're there, drive to the bottom of the South Island and do that journey 1,465 times. That's a few times, and that's one trip around the Sun. Okay. Now that I cannot imagine. We can sort of imagine the size of the Earth, but I can't begin to imagine the size of the Sun. And we're told that the Sun is one star in our galaxy that we revolve around. Okay, how incredible is that? It's written in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and it's like one verse in the Bible. It's just amazing. I'm actually after 3 volunteers. So if I can have 3 volunteers that run to the front, and what you're going to do as a volunteer is you're going to help us to explain this a little bit further. It's nothing scary. 3 volunteers. Run to the front. I will pick people out. Yeah, young man, yeah, I see you're pretty keen on the corner of your seat. Will, you want to come up? Right, come up. Okay, so you guys are smart people, right? So we just talked about the sizes and all of that, so you'll be able to do some calculations in your head. So here we have the Sun, okay? This is the Sun, right? And that's going to go there. And what I have here is I have a bowl of different sized spheres. And what I want you to do is I want to look in here and choose which one that you think is the Earth in the scale representation to the Sun, okay? And once you've looked in here and you've chosen which one you believe to be the Earth, I want you to position your Earth where you think it should be in relation to the Sun. You understand that? Okay, so come over here and have a look. See which one you think. We've got some big ones, small ones. What one do you think? Just dive in. Now doing the calculations, you see, 4.4 million kilometres on 40,000. Young man over there said 2 million times. That one, okay. And where do you think, so if this is the Sun, Carl, let me grab one as well. Where do you think Earth should be? Probably about there. When you reckon further away? Okay. He's a long way away. Will likes it warm. Young man over here likes it a bit colder. Carl, right? That's what you think the Sun is. Okay. On the Earth side. Righto, very good. Okay. What does the audience think? Further. We've got some furthers. Here? Close. Okay, right, let's look at this. Come over here, you three. That is a size 5 basketball or soccer ball, and this here is a 2 millimetre ball. And that is the scale representation of the Earth in relation to that Sun, okay? And its position, bear with me. I'm here at 23 metres. The Earth is supposed to be positioned at 25.5 scale metres away from that sun.
Wow.
I'm going to stretch your necks and I want you to turn around and I want you to look at this Earth. And I want you to find New Zealand and find yourself on. If you get to the white bit at the bottom, you've gone too far. Just come up a little bit. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. We think that the earth is big. Some of you who have done international travel will have a better understanding of how big the earth is. A round of applause for our volunteers. Thank you. We think the earth is big, but I can't even see the country that I live on in a scale representation to one star in the universe. If I didn't have the sellotape to the piece of paper, I would lose it. I wouldn't be able to hang on to it. It's very small. Who's heard of the Hubble telescope? This is a picture of the Hubble telescope here. It's one of the best telescopes that scientists have. We're going to look at this a little bit deeper. One of the reasons it's such a good telescope is because it's actually a satellite, so it's in orbit. And because it's in orbit, it doesn't have to look through the ozone layer, so it can get these very long distance images of deep space. It's been in orbit for about 30 years, so it was launched quite a long time ago. About 20 years ago, a group of scientists got the chance to charter it for 10 days. So to win time with it, you had to be a group of scientists, you had to go into a ballot, and you received a time allotment. So a group of scientists won it for 10 days. And when they presented what they were going to do with that time to the scientific community, everybody was shocked. Because what they did was they surveyed the night sky. And of course, the thing to do was to look at a known object of interest, something that you knew about but wanted to learn more. Okay? That was the status quo. So they looked at the night sky, they surveyed it, and they said, we, for 10 days, are going to photograph the darkest part of the night sky. I actually have a picture of it. So that small square there, they assigned that to being the darkest part of the night sky. And everybody goes, you're mad, there's nothing there. If there was something there, we would see something already, or we'd be getting some sort of activity coming from that region. There's nothing there, what are you doing? They said, no, for 10 days, we're going to hold that telescope very steady, take a long exposure image, download that information onto our supercomputers, and we'll see what's there. And so that's what they did. And what they found has blown my mind, because this is what they found. That is the darkest part of our night sky. And it is written, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And if you're like me, you're thinking, wow, that is an awful lot of stars, but there are 2 single stars represented in that image. Sort of top left-hand corner, there's a glistening star there. See, and then once again, sort of bottom right-hand corner, there's 2 single stars there. And other than those single stars that are on their own, every single other smudge or split or swirl is an entire galaxy. Each of them consisting of potentially tens of billions of stars. But I can't even see the country that I live on in scale representation to 1.
It's good, Jono.
How incredible is that? How incredible is that? It's actually a scientific fact that there are way more stars in the known universe than grains of sand on all of the Earth's beaches, ocean floors, and deserts. Scientists have actually confirmed this known fact. Now that's incredible, isn't it? It's just my 1-year-old putting in her 2 cents. I would love to go deeper into this, but I think that that's a good place to leave it. Okay, but you're starting to get a scale of the impossible task of trying to describe how awesome is God. We're going to leave that for a minute. We're going to go into a couple of other areas. When I read the Bible, particularly the back half of it, the New Testament, I see two overwhelming themes that really grab me that I can't ignore. The first overwhelming theme is the gift of salvation. Okay? That through receiving Christ, I'm a new creation, I'm saved, and I'm set free. Okay? I see that as an overwhelming theme. You know, we read of a thief. There's a short part of the New Testament that talks about a thief who was hanging on a cross for his crimes. And that thief hears of a man who did unexplainable miracles. He hears about how that man was put before Pilate and how when he was questioned about his accusations, he did not respond. And that man who in the midst of hanging for his crimes sees Jesus carrying his cross, he recognizes in that moment that he is the Son of Man. That he's the Son of God. He recognizes in that moment. He said, this is the Son of God. And of course, he says to Jesus, would you remember me when you come into your kingdom? In that moment, he acknowledges that Jesus Christ is the Son. And Jesus said to him, truly I say to you today, you will be with me in paradise. You know, when I look at that, and I try and comprehend the wonder of God, and then I read what Christ did for me, and I see that God bent over backwards for me. He bent over backwards for me than what he did for me. And I go, you made all of that, but that was the way that you chose. You know, I struggle to comprehend it. You think that the man who made all these things would have a nicer way of doing things, but that's how it had to be. So I see that as an overwhelming theme, the gift of salvation. And the second overwhelming theme that I see is the theme of the Great Commission. When I was 15 years old, I'm almost 30 now, so it's half my life ago, 15 years ago. When I was 15 years old, I had a revelation of life and death, sort of understanding how that all worked. I was a very, very normal teenager. I was far more interested in mucking around and causing trouble than doing anything worthwhile at school, having fun. And I became incredibly socially wired. And when you're that age, you're very social, you have a large group of friends. And I had this revelation of life and death when I was at school one morning, and I got a text message, pulled my phone out, and it read something along the lines of, hey man, just to let you know, there was an accident last night and your friend has passed away. And this friend of mine was about 4 or 5 years older than me, and the brakes were put on my life for that period of time. Everything that I have value in, everything that I knew to be right and wrong, I was recalculating my priorities in that moment. I've gone from being a 15-year-old with absolutely no worries to all of a sudden the person that I was spending time with last week had died and wasn't there. And those of you who have gone through a traumatic experience will know what I say, that when this happens, sometimes your senses, ears and eyes and smell, burn that memory of trauma into you. And for me, it was when I was at this friend of mine, when I was at his funeral, went to the cemetery, and I saw with my eyes the box that he was in lowered into the ground. And I heard with my ears the sound of soil being tossed upon that coffin. And the sight of that and the sound of that absolutely rocked me. And I knew that it was a moment in my life that I would never forget. I had this revelation of life and death. As a young person, I understood the Great Commission. I understood the gift of salvation. That Christ died died for me and that I could be a new creation. And I understood the task of the Great Commission, but I felt incredibly unqualified and incredibly inadequate, and very unskilled to do anything about it. I had just buried my friend, whom I had no idea of his final destination, no idea at all. And I felt very, very small in that moment. I had this shrinking feeling come over me. When I compare myself to that and the absolute might of God, but then He has given me this duty, I go, well, who am I to do anything with that? But I try and explain. This is the sort of thing I try and explain to young people. But if God made that, but then He left us the duty to share the light that we have with others, it must be the right way. It must be the right way. Is everybody on the same page as that? Those of you who know me will know that I love to have a laugh and that I love to have a prank. Best way to have a laugh is to have a prank. And one of the best pranks I've ever seen executed was actually on my younger brother. I've got a brother, he's 6 years younger than I am. And when he left school, he decided he wanted to have a go at making things. So he went to work for an engineer in town. And he worked there for a couple of years, working with engineering and steel. And then he decided that wasn't for him, and so he'd have another go at something else. But as is the spirit, on his last day of employment there, he was sent on an off-site job so that some covert operations could happen. He came back from the off-site job, said goodbye to his workmates and his employer at the time, and left. Hopped in his little car and he drove out the driveway, turned right onto Quarantine Road, went up Quarantine Road, turned onto the roundabout. And what you do in a little car when you get up onto the motorway, you get about 80 kilometres an hour and then you merge into the flow of traffic. And when he did that, he got an absolute enormous fright when the car that was behind him proceeded to beep, 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 incredibly loud. And he was, wow, that car just harassed me for no reason at all, for no apparent reason. So turned around, turned back, and then it stopped. And wow, that was very strange. I didn't think I did anything wrong. Drove the rest of the way home and didn't think anything of it. Next day, jumps in the little car, up the end of the street, turns left. Once again, beep, beep, beep. What's going on? These cars are harassing me for no apparent reason. What he didn't realise was when he was on the off-site job, they had found a loud horn, bolted it up under the back of the car, and wired it into the left-hand indicator. And they knew that there was only one left signal that he would use on the way home, and that was when he was merging onto the motorway. And they knew that there's no way he'd come back because he wouldn't work it out. And of course, it makes sense at the moment, but when you're in that moment, you go, what's going on? You turn to the left. By the time you come right, your indicator still has clicked off, and the noise stops. So it takes 3 or 4 incursions of this to work out what's going on. And he's going, why are these cars harassing me for no apparent reason? And it was really quite funny. I remember he was very, very shocked. Anyway, a couple of months go by from the situation. He's been working in a new employer for a couple of months. My vehicle was broken down and I needed to borrow his to go into town. I jump in this little car, drive up the end of the road, turn left, and I get a hang of a fright. And there's this great almighty beep, beep, beep. Except when I turn around, there's no one there. And I go, I'm sort of playing with this little beep, beep. And I'm going, that's very strange. That was 2 months ago. And so I beeped my way all the way into town, get what I need to do and go home. And when I get home, I find my brother and I confronted him. And I say, what on earth is going on? That's been there for 2 months. And he says, I can't find it. I've looked everywhere under the car. I can't see any wires. I can't see the horn. I can't find it. I said, you've been driving this thing for 2 months. I said, what have you been doing? He says, I just don't turn left. I said, might have to right-hand turns. Are you for real? He says, how does that work? He says, well, there's a couple of ways I do it. So I think about where I need to go. You know, if I need to do a left, I just go past it and do 3 rights. And then you're back at where you need to go. Or if you really need to do a left, you position the vehicle in the right place so that when you get to the intersection, there'll be no one there, and you just go really fast. And nobody sees that you have an indicator. And I'm sort of thinking, this is just absurd. You've been driving that every day for 2 weeks with a horn hooked up there. I can't find it, he says. No, fair enough. When I look at my life, and I look at how I position myself in places and areas that are comfortable, I go, wow, I build my life like I drive a car with a horn hooked up to the left hand. I plan my route so that I avoid the noise comes from the way I'm supposed to go. I plan my route. I put so much effort into thinking about where I should go because I'm scared of the noise I will make, that I might create some uncomfortable situation or that some people might look in my direction. And I think about that and I go, wow, I have this very fearful thing come over because I acknowledge the creation of God. I acknowledge the gift of salvation and God bent over backwards for me. I see the task of the Great Commission. And I go, God, I fail you at every turn because I know the direction I'm supposed to go, but I am very fearful of that. I'm very fearful of that. And I have intense feelings of being unqualified and inadequate. And wow, God, what am I supposed to do with myself? You know, I'm like that 15-year-old boy who lost a friend in a tragic accident, who did not know his final destination. You know, that was me. That really hurt. But even now, 15 years later, I still drive around planning my route, avoiding the true destination that He's called me to. We as mankind, we haven't changed a lot over the years. I talked about those 2 overwhelming themes in the New Testament. When you look at the Old Testament, we read of Moses. Moses, the man that God called to lead his people out of Egypt. Moses stood with God in front of a burning bush. And God says to him, you are the man that will lead my people out of Egypt. You are the man that will stand before Pharaoh and say, let my people go. In front of a burning bush, Moses is standing there. You know, that is compelling. If we had a burning bush, you know, that would grab our attention. But of course we read that Moses says, God, you've got it wrong. I am not the right person. I am not eloquent of speech. I am slow of speech and tongue. God, you've got this wrong. In front of a burning bush, Moses denies that God's plan is right. But of course, God says to him, and I love this verse because you get a sense of God's attitude. Who gave man his mouth? Who makes him deaf or mute? Who gives him sight or makes him blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, and I will teach you what to say. We as men and women haven't changed much over the years because this resonates with me. That even though I don't stand in front of a burning bush, God calls me to things, and I say, God, you've got it wrong. But I really like that because you get a sense of God's attitude. You know, did I not make everything? Did I not make your mouth? Did I not give you sight? Am I not right? Now go, and I will teach you what to say. I want to give you this verse today, and I want to encourage you that yes, the duty and the task that we have been given is hard, and it is uncomfortable, but this is the way that God has left with us. And when I put that in context, my gosh, it must be important. Because even though I can't see myself on the earth that we live on, in a scale representation to one star, and even though I have these overwhelming feelings of being unqualified and inadequate and incapable, this is the way that God has given to us. I find it very clear. I can't ignore it. I've tried ignoring it, but I can't. When I was a young person, I didn't understand, even now I go through this, I didn't understand the significance of my basic testimony. I acknowledged the beauty of creation. I acknowledged the gift of salvation. I held that. I saw this massive task called the Great Commission that I was called to, but I had no idea what to do with that. I said, wow, I have a very basic and boring testimony. How is that supposed to speak to anyone? But over the years, I have learned that people don't need the entire Bible explained to them. All they need to know is that I was on a path of destruction. I think caring for myself, not caring for others. But the God of the universe bent over backwards for me. He met me where I was at. And He has radically changed my life. Not a day goes by that He does not pour out His blessing on me. That is the power of your basic testimony. I'm sure it's very similar to that of mine. And I have learned that God has given you that basic testimony, and He will call you. And through sharing your basic testimony with people, that is all they need. Because everybody sees the wonder of creation. Everybody understands they have something in them. Wow, this cannot be an accident. You know, God has left that mustard seed in people that this creation can't just come from nothing. Everybody has that. And they will see in you that, yes, that person is changed. That person is set apart. That person is different. I want to leave you with this verse. And I want to leave you with that encouragement of your basic testimony. And I know that God, through your basic testimony, will do miraculous things. Because the same God that has created that universe, that I can't try and explain, I try, but I don't feel it justice, will walk with you and will do some amazing things. Should we get the... If you found this interesting, I would really encourage you to go home and to jump on YouTube, do what I do, jump on the internet, and search if the earth were a golf ball. And there's a guy there who does a very eloquent presentation of the earth and the scale size to a golf ball. And I've done it with the sun. If I had the earth as a golf ball, we wouldn't be able to do this experiment here because the sun and the earth would be 530 metres apart. Okay, so that's what we do. And grab a hold of the shrinking feeling that comes over you when you try and comprehend that. But then read the New Testament and read that God created that absolutely bent over backwards for you when He sent His Son to die for us. And I really want you to seek God and to pray a prayer that I try and do often. And the prayer is, Lord, would you be tough on me? Because So over the years, I've gotten very comfortable. I've gotten very good at looking at where I want to go and where I need to go, and I plan my route. That I have successfully worked out ways to avoid your calling in my life because I am scared of an uncomfortable situation. I want you to seek God, and I want you to pray that prayer, God, would you be tough on me? Because I found it's when seasons when God is tough on you that you just simply cannot avoid His call. I want you to be able to stand in front of your Creator one day and for Him to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. Welcome home. That's what I want for each of us. But when He calls us home, He is able to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. That all of those times I called you to turn left, you incurred that small inconvenience for my plan. That's the gist of what I have here today, but I pray that this message isn't the message that ends when I leave this stage. That it is something that you would go home and that you would seek God on. I'm sure that many of you are doing multiple things as God has called you. But I just know that when I look at my life, I have definitely got a tendency to skillfully avoid things, skillfully avoid the calling that God has on me. So I'm going to sing a song now and have a time of worship. If you feel to come and to get onto your knees, then do that. If you feel to worship, then do that. But I just would love for you to pray that prayer. God, would you be tough on me? Because He has called us to some incredibly important things. I don't want you to have to go through a situation when one of your loved ones dies for you to have that revelation. Are you sure of your friend's final destination? If not, you've got something to do, as do I. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I really hope that you'll take a bit of it.